Welcome everybody to my week 1 overview of me and my team's debut match in the BOU. So for our week 1, we were up against the P2 Platoon. This is a team piloted by the 3 players known as McCheesy, Creeper, and Damu. And so their team consists of Roaring Moon, Tentacruel, Floette Eternal, not to be confused with standard Floette. This thing is an absolute monster. We have Bronzon with Rain, Feraligatr, Claydol, Mega Magnetric, even though it just shows the stone, Smeargle, Clamperl with Terra Steel and Terra Water, Ferroseed with Terra Water, Terra Grass, Gloom as an option, and that rounds out the whole team. Also, Floette Eternal is Terra Steel and Terra Fairy. So looking into the matchup for week 1, I think our main offensive issues we have to worry about are these 3. And I'll kind of start with Roaring Moon. So this dude was given so many tools. We have Strong Jaw, which just boosts a lot of his moves like Jaw Lock, Jaw Lock, Crunch, things of that nature. Intimidate allows it to kind of come in on a physical attacker and then set up really easy with Dragon Dance, another incredibly scary set. Gale Wings gives it priority to stuff like acrobatics, so that can be a little scary, but this isn't their Terra Captain. So I don't have to worry about Terra Flying Acrobatics. I also don't have to worry about Booster Energy either, because that's banned. So Gale Wings isn't too much of a threat, but it's still an option you have to kind of keep in mind. Aerial Light can be good, because you obviously do have the that, the 100 base power flying return. However, again, without the Terra, it's not too scary. Moxie, which is incredibly spooky, because if it's something like a scarf set, this could get out of hand really fast. And then they gave it some really, really good coverage with Collision Course and Dragon Ascent. These two these two moves alone are so good, just in terms of breaking power, that just giving Roaring Moon, which already has pretty good coverage because it gets Fire Fang, Acrobatics, obviously the 2 stabs. And its best fight even before was Brick Break, so now it has Collision Course, which is just insane. And then giving it Defog as well, just a little bit of extra utility, just for fun. Number Wars here, we don't talk about Number Roar, because I don't really know what it does. I don't remember. I know it wasn't important, though. And then they also have Floette Eternal, which is another very scary Pokemon, because here's your main physical attacker, here's your main special attacker, right? And so Floette Eternal, especially with Terra Fairy, can get really out of hand, because you have Terra Fairy, Fairy Aura, Moon Blast, and keep in mind, Floette's base special attack, I think, is 128. So this thing hits like an absolute truck. And honestly, that's the main thing you have to worry about. It also has Light of Ruin as well. So that's another offensive option you kind of have to keep in mind, especially if you want to kind of trade with something. Beyond that, Dark Aura can be good with Dark Pulse, but it's not Terra Dark. So I feel like you're always gonna run Fairy Aura anyways. And Revival Blessing is always gonna be a really strong move. However, it's very set dependent whether or not this is brought. And then the last kind of main offensive option that we were worried about was Feraligatr. Obviously, we are primarily a rain team. We typically want rain. So if this thing gets a D-Dance up, it becomes a really big problem, because we don't really have a rain switch in. I mean, obviously we have this Sceptile who quad resists it, but Sceptile Mega isn't that bulky, and Feraligatr also gets, I believe, Ice Fang. So it doesn't really work. Urshifu Rapid doesn't want to take a liquidation. Swampert, I mean, if we give it Water Absorb, maybe, but Overquill kind of helps with it doesn't show it here, but it has Intimidate, so that kind of assists in nailing this thing down a bit. It was given new abilities with these 3. I still think Sheer Force is probably just going to be better, because Sheer Force helps boost the damage more than Strongjaw typically will. Intimidate might be brought, but again, I think our main like attacking. I think like anytime someone's probably going to prep against our team, it's going to be against Urshifu, and with it being able to crit, Intimidate doesn't really work. Um, However, in terms of moves, it was given triple dive, which can be good, but if you're not running Sash, you're typically going to want to run Liquidation anyways. Skill Shot to boosted speed, which is kind of scary. Wave Crash, which is just absurd. I mean, that's just so much damage. Jaw Lock is just really good in general. Flip Turn for pivot. Again, pretty good Pokemon to our matchup for sure. And then they also kind of have a niche option with Manectric Mega. This thing is very fast. What's this thing's base speed? Because I don't actually remember. Yeah, 135. It doesn't outspeed Mega Sceptile, which kind of goes to show how stupid fast this thing is, but it does outspeed everything else on our team, so it can be a little scary, especially with like a Weather Ball Thunder set. But we felt that we had a pretty good amount of options into it, aka Sylveon. So Mega Man and Trick wasn't too much of a threat in our eyes. Beyond that, though, to kind of go over their more defensive options that they could have run, um, Tentacruel is probably always going to be brought, at least during our prep, because Water Absorb and Regenerator are both really good at kind of handling the offensive core of like Urshifu and Sceptile to an extent. Just because, again, like it resists both of Urshifu's stabs, it can be immune to Surging Strikes. You know, it does decently well. I'm not going to say it hard walls Urshifu because nothing in this game really hard walls it, but this does a pretty good job at doing that. On top of that, we were kind of worried because Bronzong got a few different options. It has Drizzle, but we're setting our own rain anyways, so it's probably going to be Filter if it was brought. But it can run a very scary set of screens with Teleport, because what we kind of realized was it could set up screens with like Light Clear or something, teleport out into this demon, and then it starts setting up Dragon Dances, and it's kind of scary from there. And then also, a lot of our team really likes to Hazard Stack, because you have Swampert and Fortress. And so, them having Claydol with Magic Bounce was also kind of like a niche pick that was a little scary. Smeargle, it can literally be anything, right? It's kind of like a Mew sort of paradox where it can be any set. You kind of have to figure it out on the fly. So we didn't prep for it, but you know, if it was brought, then we just have to figure it out there and then. Pharisee, Clamperl, Gloom. We expected one of these two to be brought because again, I think Urshifu is probably going to be the main threat to their team because once we set up Swords Dance, everything dies. Essentially, like Moon dies, Tentacle, unless it's Water Absorb, dies. Uh, like Follette just explodes, right? So Ferrothorn with Iron Barbs does assist with that a little bit because it does resist the Surging Strikes, and Gloom does as well. With Gloom being Grass Poison, it actually resists both stabs. So these two were pretty good defensive options alongside Tentacruel. So we figured it was going to be some combination of these two, Tentacruel, probably Feraligatr, and like these two. That was kind of what we were thinking going into the matchup. So what did we end up building? Oh my. Where is it? Here. Okay, so this was our team. What is going on? Okay. So, to kind of go through it one by one here. So we obviously knew that we wanted to start with Urshifu, right? Again, with Sword Stance, it sweeps through the entire team. Nothing really switches on Surging Strikes. Overall, I mean, this Pokemon it just does so well into their team. Give me 1 second. Okay, so for starters, we knew we wanted Punch and Glove, right? Because again, we were afraid of. Let me scroll down. Ferroseed, chipping it down with Iron Barbs, or maybe even something like a Rocky Helmet Tentacruel, we just didn't want to deal with, period. So Punching Glove allows us to not have to deal with the idea of getting it chipped down anyways, and it gives us that 1.1 power boost that is also just really nice. Iron Fist also continues to boost that power even more. So these two just combined really well to kind of boost damage overall. And obviously we're going to pair this with Surging Strikes. Surging Strikes get boosted by both of these. I mean, you're kind of always going to bring Surging Strikes when you bring Urshifu. It just does so much damage. It also crits, so they can't set up with like Iron Defense or anything like that. I mean, it's just such a demonic move, honestly. Like, it just does the most damage that Urshifu can possibly dish out. And from here, we kind of realize that once we get a Sword Stance up, Urshifu actually outspeeds most of their team. Let me kind of go back here. So, it doesn't outspeed these three, or Manectric, but it outspeeds Feraligatr, Bronzong, Claydol, like everything else. It just kind of blitzes through pretty quickly. So we kind of figured out that like if we ran a bulky set, which we ended up going with, like essentially max HP, max attack, we can set up a Sword Stance pretty easily, especially if you're going Terra Steel, and then just kind of clean up from there, right? So the kind of like main concept is you bring it in, Terra Steel on maybe like Tentacruel or Gloom so they can't like toxic you. And then from there, you get your Sword Stance up. If they try to chip you down by any chance, then you just Drain Punch back to HP, and then you just kind of go to town with Surging Strikes and Mach Punch, right? Mach Punch was mainly because if we were able to get Chip on Moon and bring it into Mach Punch range, then that was probably our easiest and most consistent way of dealing with it. So that's kind of the idea. Surging Strikes for the most damage possible, Drain Punch to recover any HP we lost after Sword Stancing, and then Mach Punch for picking off Moon at the very end. So how do we pair this? How do we get the most out of Urshifu? We pair it with our Rain Setter. This is where Thundurus kind of comes in. So it didn't really look correct to go for an offensive Thundurus here. So we kind of knew we wanted it more to kind of come in, set up Rain, maybe chip something down with like U-turn or knockoff, and then kind of swap back out. And since we weren't gonna run Fortress this week, we decided to go with Defog as well. So Defog kind of gets rid of their hazards. They want a hazard stack with either like Toxic Spikes with Tentacruel, or maybe like Spikes and Stealth Rock with Ferroseed. If they try to go for a play like that, we can just defog the hazards away. Heavy Duty Boots obviously kind of goes with that style, so it can kind of switch in and do that. U-turn for just general pivot. Knockoff, again, like Pokemon's a game of information. Knockoff not only gives you information, but it gives you kind of clarity of mind, so removing an item is always nice. And since we already had 2 physical moves anyways, we decided to give it Bulk Strike, which is one of the new moves it got. Ta-da! And so what that kind of does is it allows it to have like mainly a supporting role of just a fast pivot that sets Rain, but also allows it to hit something like Feraligatr or Tentacruel in like a late game scenario if it needs to. Maybe even potentially Floette. Yeah, but overall, it's a pretty simple set. I believe for the EVs, it was that we wanted it to outspeed Adamant Moon that was sped crept to outspeed Mega Sceptile after a Dragon Dance. So I believe that was the speed EV here. Just gave it max attack, so its physical moves are going to do as much chip as possible. And then the rest we kind of just dumped into HP. So pretty simple set, nothing too complicated here. Now this set we cooked hard. So this is the Mega Sceptile set. I'm personally very proud of this one because I crafted it. Shout out to Ordinary and Emilio though. I didn't mention them yet. They helped out a lot with kind of refining EVs and game plans for this entire team. Big shout out. But this one is my personal creation. I love this one. So the idea with this Sceptile, right, is on their team. Let's kind of go back, right? They have nothing to outspeed it. again, their fastest Pokemon is Mega Manectric, and beyond that, like it just doesn't. It's going to outspeed everything, and it's going to do a lot of damage with just its stabs. Right, Dragon Pulse is going to just kill Roaring Moon. Period. Energy Ball kills Feraligatr, Claydol, Clamperl. Um, it's going to do huge damage to Smeargle as well, especially if we get Seed Sower activated. And then Earthquake. So the kind of idea with this, if they try to switch in Tentacruel to maybe tank like Dragon Pulse or Energy Ball or whatever the hell, we can Earthquake it after a +1 and it kills. That's what this attack stat is for. After 1 growth, I think it's like 70, like a decently bulky Tentacruel that has a lot of speed investment just dies. So that was the kind of idea with this. Then we give it enough speed, I believe, to outspeed Mega Manectric. And then we put a little bit of special attack investment, so it always kills Moon after a +1 with Dragon Pulse, like a bulky Moon. And then the rest we kind of dump the HP. Super cool set. It ends up doing a lot in the game, so we'll kind of see that later. And then this is the bread and butter Sylveon set. What we've kind of realized is Sylveon has one job only. It's whenever the special attackers come in, that's where we got Sylveon. That's her whole goal, is it comes in, it wish passes, and it hits them with this stupidly broken move, Sparkly Swirl. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, because it doesn't have the information here, it's 120 base power, 85% accurate fairy move, and it just hits like a truck with Fairy Aura, because keep in mind, Sylveon has a 110 base special attack, so it's Stab, Fairy Aura, and it's already like stupidly high base power, so not only does it hit like a truck, but it also acts as an active heal bell if it lands, so it's just such high reward for this move. It's so strong. Wish, Protect, Baton Pass, pretty simple idea. If we ever get chipped down with like Floette or Feraligatr, then we can switch to Sylveon at some point and then just wish pass back up, be back to full, and then just be, on our way. And so, from this point forward, the kind of game plan was simple. We had our offensive core, right? Where we could sweep with Urshifu, we could get chipped down with Thundurus, potentially sweep with Mega Sceptile, and then we have the defensive backbone of Sylveon here to deal with mainly Floette. We were very scared of Scarf Floette throughout the game because Scarf Floette can outspeed Mega Sceptile. So we kind of assumed that was going to be the plan, where they just kind of go Terra Fairy Moonblast and kind of go for like a Scarf set. But they also have Mega Manectric, so if that's in the rain and it starts trying to like spam Thunder, we can also just swap to Sylveon and she just eats those for days. Like this mod is so strong against those sorts of attackers. So once we kind of got those out of the way, we wanted to make sure we had a 100% way to deal with Moon. We didn't want to lose this Pokemon at all. So this is where Eviolite Magneton comes in. So when we were looking at the matchup, Moon kind of has a problem where it has the 4-move issue, right? You want your Dragon Stab so you can hit Sceptile. You probably want some sort of Flying Stab as well so you can hit Urshifu. And then you're going to need ideally some sort of ground coverage for Intimidate Overquill. And then you probably want to run Dragon Dance. And if you want to run Dragon Dance, then you can't run Collision Course, right? Can't run Collision Course. So this should, in theory, wall almost every single moon set that doesn't have Collision Course on it. So that was the point of it. It's max bulk, so it can wall out Moon with Eviolite. Right? Again, max bulky as possible. We gave it Levitate, so it doesn't have to die to Earthquake. It resists Dragon moves easily, and it doesn't take that much from any Crunch or Jaw Lock stuff. And then from here is pretty simple. Volt Switch just gives us good pivot in case they want to swap Moon out and predict it. Discharge can spread paralysis if we're lucky and we kind of need an out. Signal Beam allows us to just kill Moon outright in a 1v1. And then again, Toxic on the off chance that we predicted to swap to maybe like Feraligatr or Floette, or maybe even like Mega Manectric, right? So that was kind of the idea with this set. Again, something too complicated, just to wall out the Moon. And then finally, our second Moon check is Overquill here. So Intimidate works really well at just neutering Moon in general, because the assumption typically when you're dealing with the Dragon Dance mon is it's going to come in on something that it can not worry about too much damage, and then Dragon Dance, right? So the idea is you bring in Overquill, you intimidate it down, so now it's at +1 speed, and then you kind of get to choose what you want to do from there. You can Toxic it so that it can't set up with like Substitute, which we didn't think Substitute was going to be brought anyways, so we kind of committed to the Toxic idea. Barb Barrage lets you hit a bunch of damage if anything's poisoned with Toxic, so it also synergizes well with Magneton. Crunch just as a good overall stab, so that way we can hit like Tentacruel or Feraligatr, or maybe even one of these two. And then Spike, just because we didn't have any hazards, and Hazard wasn't going to be our main focus either. But if we're able to get up like a layer, maybe even 2 layers of spikes, I think that's going to help out quite a bit in the long run, because on their own, these guys can't really sweep, but together they just have immense damage output. So, spikes are just kind of like a good filler move here. It's just good. Trying to think. Oh, okay. So the EV spread. 200. I believe this was meant to outspeed max speed Feraligatr, because that was another thing we were worried about, which is because he can Dragon Dance, he can also Dragon Dance, right? So those are 2 really big issues in our team. So having a Overquill that can outspeed max speed Feraligatr was really important. So that way it can get off that Toxic, or Barb Barrage it down, Crunch it down, so on and so forth. But it also has Shuka Berry, so if Feraligatr or Roaring Moon is running Earthquake for coverage, then it's going to eat that up, not even worry about it, maybe get that Toxic off, so on and so forth. And so that was the team. Just to kind of go over the game plan one more time before we kind of get into the match. Urshifu's here. Urshifu and Sceptile kind of act as a 2-pronged attack into their team. This has just amazing coverage with these 3 moves and growth. This has really good survivability with Drain Punch and Swords Dance. And this just ships everything down, gets rid of items, so on and so forth, while giving us that rate. Sylveon just acts as a really good specialty defensive wall against their Floette and their Manectric. And then Feraligatr, Overquill and Magneton work at walling out these 2 main attackers. So that is the team. I'm going to pull up the match. I'm going to do a quick cut here, and then we're going to kind of get on to the actual match itself. Alrighty, so now I got the match pulled up here. And before I kind of get into it immediately, I kind of want to go over, what we have here, right? So we predicted most of this. We knew that Feraligatr, Floette, Roaring Moon, and Tentacruel was going to come. We were surprised to see that there wasn't Ferroseed over Gloom, or they picked Gloom over Ferroseed. I thought Ferroseed would kind of did better into our team. But I understand the Gloom pick here. Again, it resists both of Urshifu's stabs, which Ferroseed does not. So I can understand the kind of idea behind that. Sorry. And Smeargle we didn't prep for at all. So this was an incredibly scary Pokemon. We didn't know what it was going to do. We just knew that they had it. As far as what the lead was, we knew we wanted Rain Up kind of as soon as possible, on top of the fact that Thundurus is probably faster than most of their team. So we kind of felt safe that if we lead Thundurus and it's like something bad, we can just U-turn out and kind of play it from there. Beyond that, we'll just kind of get into the match, shall we? Alright. So, turn 1. Them leading Moon, we had a lot of ideas kind of going through our head. We wanted to knock it off maybe to see what item it was. We didn't want it to set up though. That was the main thing. It just going for a Dragon Dance off rip was very scary. And since we had U-turn and U-turn brings it into Mach Punch range, that was going to be our main goal. We just wanted to make sure that if we could get chip on this thing early, that's a huge advantage for us. And we kind of were running the calcs during the game. Unless it's banded, it can't kill us in any which way, shape, or form. And if it's banded, that's really good information to have. Plus, we get a free kind of switch in. So we were kind of willing to kind of scout for that information off rip and see, how it kind of plays out from there. And so they go for knock off our boots, and we get U-turn. So immediately, this trade's immediately in our favor. Because now, Roaring Moon's 100% in Mach Punch range, and that's really bad for them. Because the offensive potential of this thing just got neutered heavily. It can never sweep at this point forward. No matter what. Unless it, roosts, which we'll find out later it doesn't have. It's very, very good for us that we were able to get chip on this thing early. Losing boots and a lot of HP on Thunderous didn't matter too much to us. We felt like it was a pretty good trade in our favor, so this was a pretty good turn 1. As far as switch-ins, we could go to either Magneton or Overquill, but to make sure that this thing didn't get any out of hand, we decided to go Overquill to get the Intimidate off, so that's what we did. Alright, so they switch into Tentacruel, and we crunch. We assumed they were going to switch. They don't really have a reason to stay in. So we just wanted to go for damage, just kind of get more information and see what was going on. I don't think they wanted to go Floette if it was Toxic as well, so we decided to go for a Crunch as a more neutral play, just to get kind of damage off. Which we do. And this is actually a really big crit, because now Tentacruel can't stay in. This was an incredibly lucky turn, too. So we crit. Tentacruel can't stay in anymore, because it doesn't die to the next Crunch, but it being really, really low is really bad against Urshifu, and they need HP on this thing. So this is actually a really, really solid crit. And we learned that it's Rocky Helmet, which is important. We decided to switch to Sylveon because we kind of predicted they were going to go Floette, and they actually went Gloom. We protected kind of just scout to see what they were going to go for, because we expected Gloom, but we weren't 100% sure what it was going to run. So this is more of just kind of a scouting, see where he's going to go, where his kind of mind is at. And this is when we learned Sleep Powder. Sleep Powder is very scary just because it adds a lot of variance into the game. Again, not Cinderella, well, I guess, but Sylveon has Sparkling Swirl, so we can cure the sleep anyways, but them just having it in general is a very scary thing. Plus, we don't want Sylveon herself to get slept, because then it doesn't wall Floette anymore. So that was kind of one thing that we had to keep in mind. We ended up switching out to Overquill. We thought if anything's going to be slept, it's fine if Overquill gets slept. On top of that, if they wanted to go for a Sludge Bomb, Poison Jab, or maybe even a Toxic, then it doesn't affect Overquill here. So that was kind of the idea with that. They make a double back up to Tentacruel. So here is kind of an interesting play. There's a couple of things they could do. They could Surface for Chip, which wouldn't be great, but not the end of the world, because again, Intimidate is the main point of this Pokemon. They could go for Knockoff as well to knock off our Sugar Berry, which wouldn't be great because then it's a little bit more susceptible to Feraligatr and Roaring Moon. But again, we weren't too worried about Ursula taking too much chips, so we ended up going for, I believe, a Spike here, yes. And I'm just going to say this now. At the time, we didn't think much of it. This singular Spike won us the game 100%. It does so much work to have this entire match, which you will see later. But this Spike, this might have been one of the most pivotal turns of the entire game. Us just going for a random Spike. So this was a super good play on our end. They go for a flip turn, which is fine. And they go into Float Eternal. So, right here, obviously we learned Fairy Aura, which makes sense. Now, in mocks, we always assumed it was going to be either Scarf or Life Orb. Those are the two sets that we expected every single time. So, and with those two sets, Sylveon always walls. It can come in, wish protect itself back up, and be perfectly fine, right? We didn't have to worry about this thing at all during prep. But we will soon learn that we were foolish. Because it comes in, takes Moonblast, and takes 52%. So we now realize, oh shit, this is Specs Floette, which we didn't prep for at all. And the reason we didn't prep for it was because it just gets outsped by Urshifu, or not Urshifu, but it gets outsped by, does it get outsped? Yeah, it gets outsped by Max Speed Urshifu, it gets outsped by Sceptile, it gets outsped by Thundurus. So we didn't expect Specs at all. And this is where we learned that our whole game plan around Sylveon walling this thing is completely out the window. So this is definitely a panic moment. I think we end up protecting here just to kind of get some more leftovers HP back. And then they reveal it's Terra Fairy as well. So this thing doesn't have a switch in. And we end up just sacking Thundurus here. So this kind of lets us to reset our rain. And then also get momentum back. Because again, we don't have a switch in. Magneton gets 2-shot. Sylveon dies. Urshifu dies. Sceptile dies. Everything dies, right? So we have to sack something. We end up sacking Thundurus just to kind of get rain up, so then we can immediately go into Urshifu. And this is kind of a mind game for them, because I could Aqua Jet, I could Sword Stance, I could Trailblaze. I might just be faster and just go for Surging Strikes. They have no idea. So this kind of forces them to switch out. And I end up going for, I believe, Surging Strikes? Ah, Terra Steel. Okay, so this is where I revealed Terra Steel. The idea was, and we calculated this before, it's by a very slim margin, but since our Urshifu is so bulky, with Terra Steel it does limit Moonblast. So even if we weren't faster, which we definitely weren't, because we weren't max speed, we weren't any speed at all. Or I think we were like 28 speed, but that's not going to outspeed Floette. That was meant to outspeed min speed Tentacruel if they got like lazy. But yeah, so we go for Surging Strikes, Terra Steel, so that we can live the Moonblast if they stayed in. And we do a considerable amount of we do an incredible amount of chip to their funny little to their very comedical Urshifu answer, which doesn't answer at all. And from here, we could have killed it, but I think I'm trying to think. Why did we end up switching out? Oh, okay, I remember. So this doesn't die to another Surging Strikes. It barely lives. The only reason it's at 46 is because of the spike. So we didn't want it to live and then get something off. So we were mainly afraid of Sleep Powder. So we just went for Sceptile here. And it ends up working out because they go for Leech Seed. So now we got... So this, again, we're in a pretty good position, right? So obviously, you know, we had to sack Thundurus, which isn't great. But they took a lot of chip on Tentacruel. They're about to take more chip on Tentacruel. Gloom's chip down. Roaring Moon's chip down. He hasn't used these two yet. And Floette's already used the Terra, so we have knowledge as well. And these guys, no, they're chilling. And so this is where my Giga Brain Sceptile set comes in. Because again, remember, this is EV'd, so it just OHKOs Tentacruel, which, bop, it does. I don't think they were expecting that at all. Because I'm assuming their Tentacruel is pretty bulky, and he just got obliterated by Earthquake. So that was very funny. And then this comes in. And they said something in the chat that raised big alarms. Is it here? No. So since they just kind of put Roaring Moon on the field, we immediately expected, okay, this thing is Scarf. There is no reason this thing ever comes in front of Mega Sceptile. Now, it could be the best bluff of all time, but we were at this point very certain that it had to be Scarf. So, and we didn't want Sceptile to die for no reason, so we just switch out here, I'm pretty sure. But again, something to keep in mind, right? So, Spike put Gloom in range of Surging Strikes on switch in. Tentacruel was always killed by Earthquake. Roaring Moon's getting chipped. Floette's getting chipped. The Spike's doing a lot so far. Oh yeah, this little comment. No dragon dance? Yeah, that kind of told us immediately this is for sure Scarf. Which it was. I mean, goes for YouTube here. Really good play. It kind of catches our more passive play here, and it puts us really out of position. And then go into Smeargle. Again, we had no clue what this thing was going to do. So we're just like, I'm just going to full switch out into Urshifu and just kind of go from there. So he sets up a sticky web. And now this is where we kind of figure out what their game plan was. The idea was you set up sticky web with Smeargle, sorry. And then Specs Floette kills everything. That was their entire idea. So once we kind of figured that out, the goal was essentially we just need to chip down Floette as much as possible. That was kind of the new goal. And so now we're in this position, right? So we have a few options. We could Surging Strikes, we could Mach Punch it, we could Swords Dance even. But we end up going for Mach Punch because we are slow now because of the sticky webs, and we didn't want to take like a Spore or anything like that because that's kind of just an insta loss. So we end up going for Mach Punch, which ends up working in our favor because we end up getting another kill. And so now the Pokemon count is also in our favor, which is really, really good for us. Because we had to sack Thundurus off early, but look at what we kind of got in return for that. A lot of damage on some really important mons, and now they've lost 2. Okay, and then they go for Alligator. So this thing does get superpower, which we're kind of afraid of. So I believe, yeah, we just hard switch. In retrospect, it was probably better to go Ursula here. I don't remember why we decided to go Magneton. I think the like concept was that if we stayed in, we never die to one attack, so we could come in and Volt Switch, and then for Alligator dies to Mach Punch. Yeah. Okay, that was it. So Magneton never dies to anything they have unboosted, so he could come in, eat 1 hit, and then Volt Switch out back into Urshifu, and then it's in Mach Punch range. And look at everything Urshifu kills now. It kills Feraligatr, it kills Gloom, it kills Roaring Moon. The only thing that they have that doesn't insta-die is Floette, which also dies because it lives Moonblast and then dies to Surging Strikes. So Urshifu is an amazing win con at this point. Yep, so they go for Flip Turn, which is fine. Again, Spike, putting in a bunch of work. We get our... Oh, we don't get Full Switch off, I forgot. Yeah, from here we didn't want Magneton to take too much damage, because again, it could do well against Root Moon and Feraligatr in the late game. So keep it around, we decided to just sack the Sylveon. And this is kind of the line of play that we have to play around, especially with this demon, is we every time it comes in, we kind of have to sack everything and then switch back into Steel Urshifu. So that way we can force it out and then chip it down even more. So again, they go Gloom, and since the Spike and Surgery Tricks from last time, this thing just folds like a pancake. Okay, not exactly, because of no rain, but it was in Mach Punch range anyways, so this was fine. This wasn't too scary. So Gloom dies, and that is 2 kills for Urshifu now, so that's pretty cool. Then they go back to Feraligatr. Again, Urshifu cannot take Chip. If Urshifu takes Chip and puts it in a Moonblast range, we insta lose. So again, gotta switch out. We go to Overquill this time to get the Intimidate off. And they go for Ice Punch. I think what was happening was they were expecting a Sceptile switch. Because if Sceptile gets in, it's really difficult for them to do much. Because Feraligatr, they have to sack something, essentially, if Sceptile gets in. So this Ice Punch makes sense from them. But again, it doesn't work because we end up going Ursula anyways. And at this point, I guess I just wanted to kill it. So we end up going for Barbarage, get some chip. We get a poison, which is super nice because again, we're going for an Urshifu endgame at this point. Surging Strikes kills, Mach Punch, right? That's the goal. So Barbarage getting it chipped down there is huge. We didn't want Ursula to die for no reason, so we ended up switching into Magneton here, which makes sense. And now we get a free Volt Switch. He just goes for Ice Punch, more chip, no freeze, and we get our Volt Switch. And so now this game is pretty wrapped up at this point. If we go into Urshifu, Floette can't kill it, and Roaring Moon, it dies to Mach Punch. So this game is over at this point. Yeah, they go Floette. And this is where things kind of got a little scary. Because they go Floette, and then they Light of Ruin, which does kill. Now, for those of you who don't know what Light of Ruin is, I think it's like 140 base attack. That you take half of the damage that you yourself deal. And so what you'll find here is he Light of Ruins, but Floette also dies. So even though it does 50%, since our Urshifu's HP stat was so high because we made it bulky, it ends up killing Floette and doing more than 50%. So at the time, this was very scary because our guaranteed win was that we always Surging Strikes into Mach Punch. But now Urshifu's gone, so now we have to deal with the moon, and the moon's a little spooky. But again, we have the 2 moon answers of the week, so we were pretty confident. We sat here for a while because we weren't sure whether we wanted to go Magneton or Ursula, but we ended up going Ursula here. I don't know why I keep saying Ursula. I get oh my god, my name's Overquill. And we ended up going Overquill just to get that Intimidate off. And it ends up working pretty well in our favor here. As we'll see, he goes for Outrage, which makes sense, because it's the only move that's going to kill full HP Sceptile. And this is where we learn he's Moxie Scarf. So, which makes sense, right? It outspeeds everything, and if he gets rid of the walls, it can work out. However, our boy, our knight in our shining armor, Magneton, comes in to save the day. He takes literally nothing from the Outrage and then just kills a Signal Beam. And that's the game. That is our debut match in the league. Super happy to win week 1. Again, kind of looking back at it, I think we played this really well. Again, Floette Moz with webs was definitely not in our prep plan, but I think identifying that Urshifu with Surging Strikes and Mach Punch kind of just cleans the rest of the team up as we do more and more chip with Sceptile and Ursula and Magneton just pivoting around. It ends up working out really well in our favor, and then it forces them to do a trade with Floette, and by that point, the damage is already done, right? You can't use Moon to kill both of these two. Either he's picking like a move like Collision Course to kill not Overquill. Well, I would have killed Overquill, but either he picks like Collision Course to kill Magneton, or he picks Outrage to kill Sceptile, but he can't do both. So we kind of put him in a charming situation there. And honestly, good prep from our opponent. I mean, obviously they ended up losing, so that's not great. But I mean, looking back, right, like, the Gloom didn't really do much besides come in and take a few hits. But had we not predicted its Leech Seed / Sleep Powder set, it would have put in a lot of work. Rocky Helmet Tentacruel with Regenerator makes a lot of sense, just because it can take the hits, and if we're not Punching Glove, which we were, it could have chipped down Urshifu a lot, but it didn't end up mattering because our GOAT Sceptile ended up cleaning it up. And then, yeah, again, the webs with Terra Fairy, Choice Specs, Fairy Aura, Floette Eternal, absolute demon of a Pokemon. We should have didn't have answers for it, as you saw. We had to sack them on every time it came in, but again, with proper play, it ended up working out. And so, yeah, pretty happy about our first week. I'm going to wrap it up there, but hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in episode 2, where we ended up taking on I believe it was Get Jinxed. Yeah, that was our week 2 opponent. So I'll see you in episode 2 where I go over that match, all of its fun little moments. But anyways, peace out, guys. See ya.